It's Travis Anderson here. Welcome to our second episode of Realtors Influencing Other Realtors. I'm here with Ryan Gunvalson, excited to get started.
First year of real estate was 20 years ago. So it goes back a ways. I got licensed in 2005 and was part-time in essence. I was doing other work and I looked at it as a means to, the plan was to transition out of what I was doing. And at that time, I didn't get fully into the swing of things until probably 2006. But I started at an old Century 21 office over in Woodbury in the old Valley Creek Mall. And real estate was totally different back then. It was, I feel like what newer agents have now at their fingertips was tenfold what it was when back in that day. I mean, you showed up into the office, nobody said anything, nobody talked to you, nobody helped you. Certainly didn't have classes on what to do, even though you just went to school to do it. They don't really teach you that, right? And a lot of the stuff they did teach you, you don't really use. Right. So it started out that way. So I don't even know if I did a deal my first year because I was still working part-time, but I got in, showed up at the office a few times. We actually had to do floor duty, if anybody remembers what that is, where you literally just sit there and wait for somebody to call or come in. So I did that. Shadowed a couple open houses with some people that were in my office that were older. And it was really just like seeking out a mentor. I didn't really jive with anybody in that particular office. They were super nice people, but just didn't really, jive with it. And then 2006 rolled around. The office wasn't serving its purpose for what I wanted to do. And that's when I joined and started going around looking at, okay, where do I want to be? And I met with a few different places, ended up joining KW. And so it was this night and day difference, obviously, as far as what they provided from a new agent's perspective from what I was experiencing before. So that was super helpful. And they've been, doing their thing and providing training and help. And the culture itself was just totally different, right? Like people would help you and you're like, whoa, you're not just staying in your office, keeping the door shut. Like they want to help. And so, that was what kicked it off for me. A combination of things, some of which open houses later. When I say later, meaning like 2011 to 2019 even was when I did a bulk of my opens, where I actually started, it sounds ridiculous, but taking it more seriously to the point where I would be setting an appointment at an open house. Like, and that was the standard at which I wanted to do it at. And it increased our business back then, about to 30% or so was what we built up our business, just on open houses. But back in that grind that I was talking about was open houses. I didn't really do any door knocking, though I love to be outside and I like exercise. So I'm like, that would have been a great combination. I just didn't do it. Sign calls, did a ton of sign calls and outbound prospecting. Following up with leads, calling people in databases. A lot of that was probably the bulk of my business. And the grind was that, there people that were selling back then, as you know, and a lot of other people do, it was short sales and lender mediated or bank owned sales made up almost half of the marketplace. So it was just a different time in real estate. And that was, part of what I did to help the cause, and selling homes at that rate while dealing with the current market conditions was what proved to be a little more difficult. It certainly wasn't easy, but it wasn't like the worst thing in the world either. And what I mean by grind was just keeping on doing those tasks and those lead generation activities so that, you could have a steady paycheck or have steady closings or what have you. Totally different. So we built, and I've been a part of a couple teams, right? And solo for a little bit. So I kind of done a little bit of everything. Naturally have fallen into, I do like working with buyers. And I think that's naturally where, like, if you look at if you look at who I am and personality type, I naturally fall into that. And so I think between 2011 and 2019 was when I really pounded open houses, and I was doing, upwards of eight or more a month. Eight was my standard. And so I was doing open houses all the time. And so it was just open house traffic and signage and advertising for the open houses, door knocking for them. So once I built that up to a point where, like we've all had it, right? We go into an open house and nobody comes and you're like, that was terrible. However, I also tracked at that point in time when I was doing an open house, all my closings from open houses. So then I could reduce it down to figuring, okay, I make, whether or not somebody walks through my door, I'm making X amount of dollars per hour at this open house. So if I had anybody, I didn't care. I was still getting paid. If I did, great. Then I was setting an appointment. So did that. Like I said, it brought us up to about 30% of our business. So that built a lot of clientele, both buyers and sellers, who then became past clients, and which then evolved into our business of keeping in touch with past clients and such. Right now we're about, high 60% repeat and referral business, and you can't do it overnight. So I think all of the grind from the early days, open houses, along with just the sphere we already had, was what built that up. And then continuing to love on them and help them out and stay in touch with them in order to build up our business now. So a lot of what I'm doing now, I started getting back into the open house swing. Life, with 3 kids got crazy. Well, COVID happened, and then open houses were not really going on. Well, some were, but not really. So that kind of put a damper on it. And then 2022, didn't do a lot of opens, onesie, twosies here and there. And then I started looking at it and saying, I want to get back into the open house realm again, just because I know it was so good. It's so profitable. Yes, it takes more time than sitting making a phone call. However, if you can get back into the swing of getting an appointment from an open house, or building your database full of people that are going to make a move now, or 3 months, 6 months, a year out, that's a pretty good deal too. So looking at that, that's kind of a bulk of what I do. So right now it's open houses, and then we do a lot of sphere stuff and a lot of events that come around that sphere. Like this morning, the only people I called were past client sphere people. So pretty much on a daily and or weekly basis, I'm talking to sphere people, because we built that up and we want to continue to grow that and keep things where they're at with that. I studied a lot of people that just built their business on open houses, a lot of the people moved from somewhere in the United States to a totally new place. So they didn't have, they had their sphere, but they're back at their old house or state or wherever they lived. So I started doing that, following up. A lot came with scripting, right? It was getting into the swing of like, okay, how do we do this? Like, you just show up and, sometimes you're nonchalant about it, but I'm not just doing that for an hour or two. I really only do an hour open house because I can't sit there that long. Doing it for an hour, but if I'm going to be there and take time out of my day or my family's weekend or whatever, I want it to be fruitful. And so door knocking, I would do, at one point, it was like a standard of 20 door knocks. It got to be too much. Once you're doing so many open houses and they're following up with the leads during the weekend and prepping for open houses, it just can be overwhelming. So then it was like, okay, I'm just going to do 5. I'd rather do 5 consistent instead of saying I'm going to do 20 or 10 and not do it at all. So then you reduce down, you just find a number that works for it. And you could do a couple doors to the right, a couple doors to the left, across the street, whatever, just inviting them to an open house. We would call around and circle prospect around the neighborhood, inviting neighbors to the open house. When I would door knock, I had a little flyer that talked about the open. Would do that, and then I would hold the open house. And then at the open house, like I said, I had to print it out, my calendar. I had printed out, just sheet and info on the house. And then I would usually print out like what's in the neighborhood selling. And so you get really, really good at, the more open houses you do, especially in a very tight-knit or hyper local area, you're really good at knowing and understanding value, like insanely good at it, to where I would just know every sale that's gone and where it's at or what it's selling, or if it's pending, and then if it's sold, what it's sold for. So they just look at you as the local expert. And then follow up with those people. I don't have a digital signage sheet. Like I've tried it. I feel like it isn't as good as just a genuine clipboard with a piece of paper on it. So I still go the old school way of doing it. And then, like I had an open house not this past weekend, but the weekend before. And I had really good traffic. I did it on Thursday and I did it on Friday. And I ended up actually selling that house to one of the guys that came to my open house. So he ended up buying it. And I got, I don't know, 3 or 4 other leads that will potentially do something down the road. So does that happen every time? No. I could count on the number of fingers that they've actually bought the house through the open, but it's just about generating leads and building rapport and trust with these people that come through, so that if they don't use you now, they'll use you down. And so starting out, I just got back into the swing of things now with this year of doing more opens. So I haven't gotten back into doing my full-fledged plan of what I was doing pre-COVID with the door knocking and doing all of that stuff. So we still do a little bit of marketing around getting people to the open. So plugging it that way, but and kind of hovered between the 32 to 40 a year. The 2021 and 2022 dipped down a little bit. And I think it was, twofold, right? That's when rates started, 2022, right around May or so is when rates started creeping up. So that put a kind of a deer in the headlights on the market a little bit. And being only on the buy side, that's can be a little different. We were still grinding it out, right? With multiple offers and well above list price and trying to pull out every magic rabbit in the hat you could to win. And then, last year I was just a hair under 30. And this year, the goal will be to be a little bit higher than that. So not quite back pre-COVID, but, like somewhere in the high 30 mark as far as units, what I want to do. And a lot of the plan that I'm using this year to get there is going to be built on, number one, keep continuing to flourish and love on my sphere and past clients, because that's a bulk of where our business comes. And then open houses. Those are kind of my two bread and butters, if you will, that I like doing, that I feel I'm good at. Because there's lots of things you try, right? Like you could do any sort of prospecting you want to do, but I look at, am I actually going to do it? Do I like doing it? And am I good at it? And this is different for everybody. There's no right or wrong. Like some people are like, I'm not holding an open house. I'm like, that's fine. Like if they don't like it or they're not good at it, my argument would be you could get good at it if you tried, but maybe they just don't like doing it. Some people love door knocking, right? Like, so it's find what you like and just kind of perfect it. Oh, absolutely. I think, you just continue to hit your strengths and perfect it and tweak it. And there's always something you could do differently or better, but it's just about testing the waters. And like when I started testing the sign in and the digital open house thing, I was like, no, I went back to the old pen and clipboard, as I was saying earlier. But I think you do what you like, and then you just perfect it along the way. A lot of it's trial and error. You got to try something before you know if you like it or don't. And then if you do like it, great. It's just trial and error repeatedly over time until you get it to where, this is like a well-oiled machine and works out. Great Recession, because that was like a period in time where it was like, gosh, am I going to be in real? Like, I mean, that's how it was doom and gloom, like everywhere. And granted, there's people that were down at the floor thinking they're going to die, right? It's one of those things where you try to tune those people out, right? And stay positive mentally, positive physically. I think that was probably a point in time where it's like, I just gotten into it. I didn't know what the heck to expect. I didn't know, like, is this how it's going to be forever? You just don't know what you don't know when you're newer to that. And had only been a couple years into it. I mean, that was like the thoughts that were going through my head, right? Like, so am I going to like be in this? And I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, that was probably a doom and gloom. Because there was a couple points where I was like, I don't have closings for months, like, and thinking like, okay, do I want to sustain this or do I not? And if I don't want to do it, what am I going to do? Like, meaning like leave real estate and go do something else, right? And if I do want to do it, well, then what am I going to have to do to up the game or up my, contact number or closing, whatever the number I'm trying to go after. So I think that was probably a point where, you know, it was interesting because it was all of that combined into one. I'd gotten into it new. It was dark in of the sense that I didn't know what to expect, right? I don't think anybody did. Nobody had the crystal ball. Nobody still has the crystal ball. So it's like, I just put my head down and said, okay, well, here's what I'm going to have to do if I want to come out on the other end. And it wasn't anything lavish or pretty, and I wasn't selling like 100 homes, you know what I mean? Like in that time period. And I didn't do listings, so I wasn't really doing short sales on the listing side. It was all buy side stuff. So I was like, well, I don't mind selling, you know, a handful of homes at 115,000. Which is what it was. I've seen some places. But you had to be persistent and consistent. And having faith in what you're doing. I read something once, and it just stuck with me in forever, but it said, fear is paralyzing, but faith will set you free. And so that's always stuck with me, coupled in with what the persistence and being consistent in the persistence. And I think that's kind of what helped me get through that. Now, granted, it wasn't like a dark time of like, hey, somebody in my family died. Like, that's a different dark, but from a real estate perspective, you know, it could have easily went any way for me, but I didn't want to get out of it. I liked it. And, you know, I think just continuing to grind and I won't say being relentless on it, but continuing to be consistent on it, at least on the activities, I think gets you through it. And no matter what, like, I think, you know, you can use that with any, not just real estate, any profession, anything in life, or, you know, what have you. I wish I would have found the fear and faith thing that I just alluded to a little bit earlier. I understand we evolve, right? And things change. And so had I known back then, like some of the other successes I've had, I would have focused more on, like for the open house thing. I probably would have started that earlier than I did. At least doing it on a consistent basis and doing it to the level and scale that I had it at. And just continue to be physically, you know, I'm a big proponent of being physically, not that I'm physically fit and have a six pack, but I like run, I ski, I bike, I do. So for me, that's my escape. And I always kind of knew that, right? Like being outside for me is where I rejuvenate mentally and I decompress. And I wish I would have done a little bit more of that back then. Granted, I was in the thick of it with little kids and whatnot. And I would do it periodically, but not on a basis like I do today. So I would have done that more. That in turn for me keeps me healthy mentally. So had I done that, I would have been more consistent with that. And then continue to, you know, hone my skills and fine tune them to focus more. I feel like the younger you are in your career, the more you're like throwing darts at a dartboard at 50 feet away versus just having more narrow focus on one thing. And so that'd probably be what I tell myself. You know, at least my experience, I mean, take with it what you want and just do what you like to do. You can always get good at something. If you don't like doing it though, you know, you're not going to have fun doing it, right? Like, so seeking the enjoyment out of it is still something you have to factor in, right? Like you could make or have as many closings as you ever wanted, but if you're not having fun or you're not enjoying it, how worthwhile is it for you? So do what you love to do and continue to refine and hone in on your skills. Awesome. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it as well. It's good to chat.
All right, man. You're awesome.
That's so good.